my strength when I am weak. You are the treasure that I seek. You are my all in all. Seeking you as a precious jewel, Lord, to give up and be a fool. You are my all in all. Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Taking my sin, my cross, my shame, rising again, I bless your name. You are my all in all. When I fall down, you pick me up. When I am dry, you fill my cup. You are my all in all. Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Oh, Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Worthy is your name. Worthy is your name. And shall live as one who's been forgiven. I'll walk with joy to know my debts are paid. I know my name is clear before
shall live as one who learned compassion. I've been so loved that I'll reserve into. I know how fear builds instead of bridges. I'll dare to see another's point of view. And when relationships demand commitment, then I'll be there to care and follow through. Your kingdom come around and through and near. Your power and glory, let them shine through me. Your Lord name, oh, I bear with honor, and may your living kingdom come to me. And when all oh, may I bear with honor, and may you feed the hungry world through me.
So the song we're going to do is entitled Meho Yesu in the Cree dialects. But in English it means that I have seen Jesus. And because I have seen this man called Jesus, he has changed my life. And my life has never been the same. That is the reason why we sing the song we sing. Because of the encounter we've had with this man called Jesus. Meho Yesu is going to be sung by the Manifest a Cappella. Sit down and enjoy.
Mabirabo asisa
And the Mehu Yesu, and the Mehu Noyamiti Kura
Yesu
and the Mehu Yesu, and until
Mabirabo asisa
and the Mehu Yesu, and the Mehu Noyamiti Kura and the Mehu Yesu, and until
Mabirabo asisa
Oti boy ni oti sami na mini ahuto me chin we are singing na remu na mini ochi fubio betsumi achimi and the shira Kenya onyami bani tinda me Yesu and me oyamide and me and until
Mabirabo asisa
Oti boy ni oti sami na mini ahuto me chin we are singing na remu na Mini on Chifu Pio Betsumi, Achimi, and the Shiran Kenyame, Onyami Bani Tindame, and Mabi Rambo Asisa Onyami Bao Ye Mami Masona Kena Mehuse Oh to me Adini Naye Masona Kena Mehuse Oh Ye Mami Mehuse Ra Now Behunu and Mehunu Mehu Yesu and Mehu Mabirabo Asisa and Mehu Yesu and Mehu Yesu and Mehu Yesu and Mabirabo Asisa and Mabirabo Asisa Mabirabo Asisa Enuti Mabirabo Asisa.
Good afternoon. Thanks again for joining our service. I'd like to thank everyone that participated in our morning session. Thank you so much. I hope that you've been blessed and have been. We continue the theme for the day, or the emphasis is on our young people. And this afternoon, we are blessed, or more privileged as well, to have a brother and sister. These two have grown up in our own church and they want to give back to our church. And I'd like to introduce them, and then after we'll have a word of prayer, and the first presenter will have her take. So we have Dr. Grace Mansa and Ben Owusu. Grace is a chartered psychologist and she has grown up in our church. She has a lot of experience in how to deal with being resilient, and she is going to share some of her experience with us this afternoon. So when her time is due, you would hear from her. And then Ben also has had a good time working in Jaguar Land Rover in the past years. And he's also going to share his experience, how to connect with business leaders. In fact, COVID has taught us so many new things. And one of the things that I think he has taught is to find unconventional ways of doing things, or non-traditional ways of either looking for a job, applying for a job, getting in touch with business leaders. So Ben is going to share his experience and also give us a few tips on how we can also use those avenues that are available to us. So shall we bow down our head for a quick word of prayer? And after the prayer, I would invite Mansa to start her presentation. Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we are most grateful that you have watched over us throughout this week. It is time for your children to speak. May you empty their pride and anything that's negative and fill them with your spirit. May you speak through them and to them in the name of Jesus. Amen. So Grace, over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all right this afternoon. And I think this talk has come at the right time. Obviously, we know that we're now in a second lockdown. So resilience is really important in everyday life, but especially now people are facing a lot of different situations. Obviously, people are still in school, university or college. But in the face of that, how do you remain resilient and alert and in a good mindset to be able to continue doing whatever it is that you're doing. So some of you might have seen this presentation before. It has been done a couple of times this year. And I want to shout out to Dr. Nancy Intia, who actually wrote these slides and wrote this presentation initially, and we were delivering it together. So we've delivered it together, I think, 3 times this year. So I'm going solo. So that is really good to do it again. But she's the orchestrator of this kind of session, as well as a bit of a background about me. Those who don't know me or aren't aware of what I do. So I'm a chartered psychologist, but I'm not a clinical psychologist. So it's a bit confusing for people that aren't aware of the different areas of psychology. So I mainly work within the workplace. So I'm an organizational psychologist, and what we specialize in is basically allowing people to develop and getting the best out of people at work. So I've been doing that for a number of years in lots of different organizations around, railway industry. I've worked in countless different roles. Those of you that know me will know that I've worked everywhere. But currently at the moment, my main job is I work in one of the big charities in the UK. And what I do is I help manage the graduate programs, the apprenticeship activity, the graduates as well, past, present and future, as well as since COVID-19, I was actually furloughed for a couple of months. And when I came back, I've been working a lot more within diversity and inclusion to make sure the charity is a bit more fair and a lot more inclusive in how they work. So that's just a little bit of a background on me. I'm going to start showing the slides now, so bear with me one moment. So, yes, the topic for today, as we said, is Black and Resilient. And this year's been really hard for Black people everywhere, but especially Black people who live in other countries where they are the minority. Globally, we're not the minority, but when we come to other countries, we become a minority. So resilience in the face of police brutality, watching people being, attacked and murdered by police and law enforcement. It's not easy to watch every day. It's not easy to just navigate workplaces, school, anywhere. And also we've been seeing that COVID-19 has really impacted Black and minority ethnic people's lives, more so than the majority white population, because the rates of infection and the rates of people dying from COVID-19 is actually higher in Black and minority ethnic populations in the UK. So it sounds very doom and gloom, but what the topic of today's session is, how can we actually how can we become more resilient and be stronger in ourselves as people and use that strength to help us navigate whatever areas that we're in? That could be school, could be university, could be work, it could be anywhere. So the first question is, what are the of being a Black person in a predominantly white space? And when I say a predominantly white space, it doesn't necessarily mean that even if you go to a school with lots of Black people in it, you won't be feeling some of these things, or you're not in a space where there's lots of Black people in it, you won't be feeling these things. These things are also, when we talk about like racism and prejudice, for example, a lot of it is systemic. So that means it's within the structures of our society. So there's certain things that we might be more prone to noticing, feeling, being affected by more than majority white people in the UK. So some of these challenges, bear with me. Some of these challenges and some experiences that people might face, for example, are people experiencing microaggressions. So the term microaggressions is something that's definitely being used more and more in the last at least 5 years. And I'll explain what it is. So big racism with a big R, usually people think of, the big events that people do. So people might be calling people names. People might be violent towards a Black or person of colour. Those are the very obvious traits of racism that you can identify it, it's obvious, you can feel it, you can see it, you can touch it, if you see what I mean. But with microaggressions, that's a much more subtle, and some people say much more modern form of racism. So they're just like little slights or things that make a person in a marginalized group, and for the example of this, Black people, feel much more, or feel like they're being attacked. And it doesn't have to be something big. And it's funny because when I've been talking to friends and family and acquaintances, when I talk about racism, people are like, oh, well, I can't really think of anything, because they might not have had those big experiences of racism. But it could be someone saying things like, oh, you sound really articulate. Oh, you're really good at expressing yourself. And to someone, that might just be like, oh, there's nothing wrong with that. They're just complimenting you. But if you look at the context, why are they saying that to me? What do they expect me to sound like? Why didn't they say that to my white peer or my Asian peer? Why are they only saying it to me? So that's one example of a microaggression. It also could be, something, comments about how you look. Oh, you look really nice today. Your hair, talk to me about your hair. Like, do you wash it? I've had that many times. Do you wash your hair? How do you do your hair? Oh, your hair's not normal. I've heard that too. So things like that, commenting something about you which pertains to your race or your background, which makes you feel uncomfortable, basically. And it's really hard to deal with, because it's like you have to justify why you feel a particular way. To a white majority person, they might not pick it up. They might not pick it up. Maybe they do pick it up, but they will say that they don't understand. It could also be something like, oh, I can't be racist because I have Black friends, or I have Black people in my family. So it's kind of like dismissing that actually it doesn't matter if you have Black friends. That's not a pass to not being racist. So that's one experience, or something that's commonly experienced by Black people in any setting, not just employees. Imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome is a concept, a psychological concept, but basically it's a feeling of not feeling like you belong in a space, like that you're basically like a fraud. So even though you might have all the qualifications to be in that school or that university or that college or that workplace, you have worked a lot harder or the same as everybody else, you might feel inferior. You might feel like you're basically like you've tricked people into giving you the job, like you don't really deserve to be somewhere. And that could be because you don't see as many role models. So people that look like you in that space, you don't know many people in that space, or over years, people have been downplaying your achievements. So when somebody else does the same thing as you and they're not Black, it's, really, really celebrated. But when you do it, it's more of like, oh, that's good, but did you get any help? Oh, that's good, but that's not as good as X person. So consistently, whether it's school, university, college, you don't feel like you've ever been acknowledged for the work that you do. And then that can actually come back to us and make us feel and question our own achievements. And I've heard it so many times from friends, family, people I coach, students, where they'll say, oh yeah, but I'm not as good as X person, and I only got it because, it was luck, or it because of this or because of that. But actually it's because of them and God, obviously. But they don't attribute their own kind of successes to themselves. They always attribute it to an external factor like luck, or, it's because someone, that's why they got that job. Another one is code switching. So as a person with any culture or any kind of background, most people will experience this. So it means like with your Black friends, with your church friends, with your family, you'll act one way, but at work, and a friend of mine calls it, her name's Kay, she calls it corporate K. So the K that she brings to work is different and has to act differently to fit in and to be accepted and to be seen in a particular way at work. And you might find that in school, you might find that in college, you might find that in university. And that is quite tiring for the individual. It's exhausting, feeling like you can't really fully be yourself. Another point that I've heard a lot this year is people coming to the nearest Black person and asking them what their take is on a global issue. It could be the Trump elections. It could be the killing of either Breonna Taylor or any of the Black people that have died in police custody in America. Just being asked to be the spokesperson for all Black people in the world, it's a massive burden because we're all actual individuals. So one Black person is not going to have the same thoughts, beliefs, lifestyle as another Black person, because you get that in every walk of life. Just because you share the same characteristic, it doesn't mean you're the same. So that's a really difficult thing to navigate. Muting your identity. So some people do this to try and not really draw attention to themselves in these spaces, because it comes with a lot of excess. It's like people are hyper aware of you being in a space if you're one of the only ones. So what people tend to do sometimes to save themselves from that is downplaying or not talking about their cultural background or the food that they ate, for example, for dinner, where they went on holiday, or who they spent their holidays with. So at work, school, college, they just won't talk about it. They won't really draw attention. They don't make friends. You won't necessarily make friends with people that aren't really like you because it's uncomfortable. You don't want to have to explain, that you went to a Euro-Ghanaian camp meeting over the summer holidays, or you don't want to have to explain that you ate for food for dinner last night, because people won't understand what that is. For some people, this isn't an aspect of their life, and it's actually quite liberating if you don't have to explain it. But for others, if you're definitely one of the only Black people around, especially the only African person around or West African, it can be quite tiring. So that's quite common. And lastly, stereotype threats. So that's people removing themselves from what other people think Black people are like. So they might be like, oh, well, other Black people like R&B, but I don't. And that could be natural, that's fine. But some people might deliberately remove themselves from what they think a stereotype of a Black person is, because they don't want it, they're different. They don't want to be seen as like everybody else. And that's a protective factor. It helps people to be able to navigate these uncomfortable spaces sometimes. Okay, so based on all of this stuff that we're bombarded with every day, it could be subtle, it could be obvious. It might be things that you don't even notice yourself, but you might find yourself having these conversations or avoiding these conversations. Based on that, we have to develop some form of resilience to help us to navigate these spaces so we can A, remain calm, B, remain sane, C, remain to do our jobs, whether that's to pass exams, whether that's to get a promotion, or just to survive every day mentally. So here are some of the 4 things that we can do, and I'm going to go through all of these in order. So first of all, self-care. Second of all, identity. Third of all, values. And fourth, community. So self-care is one of those terms that, again, has been used a lot in the last 3 years to 4 years that I've noticed. And it has connotations. People, when you think of self-care, for me, I think of people in a bath, like having a long bath with loads of bubbles, male or female, reading a book or whatever. And for me, that is not relaxation. That is not self-care for me. I don't like baths. I prefer showers or a bucket bath. I don't find it relaxing. I get bored. So self-care is all around what you do to feel better about yourself, to make you feel like you've come back to yourself, if you know what I mean, like who you really truly are. Where do you find yourself the most happiest? And that for some people could be with their families, with their children, with their best friends. It could be exercising. And for some people, exercise is a real, it gives you endorphins. So it increases the amount of endorphins that are released in your body, which make you feel better and can make you feel positive. So some people are really like into the gym. If they're stressed, they'll go. I know people that go to the gym twice a day. That's not for me. But when I do go to the gym, it's definitely something that I do for self-care or some form of exercise. For some people, it's praying. Obviously, for most people, it would be, especially in this context, we're at church, talking to God, going through scripture. in the past, obviously, we were able to be face to face in the church building, and that's definitely self-care for some people. 1 day a week, removing yourself from all the pressures of everyday life and really focusing on God, and that's definitely a form of self-care. Mentally, it could literally be like reading a book, watching a documentary. Some people practice kind of not meditation in the literal form of meditation, but praying for some people is a form of kind of meditating and, removing outside influences and focusing on God and yourself and the relationship you have with God. So for others, self-care is hard because there are barriers. There's everyday life. People have work, people have children, people have to homeschool when people were homeschooling, people have to do shopping in the COVID-19 times. If you were going out to the shops, that's something that can be quite stressful, as well as now a lot of people are doing it online. Trying to find a delivery slot at the beginning of the pandemic was really, really hard. If anyone tried it, it was like trying to win the lottery. It was really difficult. So these can be barriers to self-care, but one way to overcome that is to allocate time in the week, in the day, to yourself. It could be 10 minutes. It could be whatever you can spare to do whatever it is that you need to look after yourself. What are the signs we need to exercise self-care? And that's a really good question. And it can tend to be a time where you find yourself becoming quite tired, like not just physically tired, but mentally tired. So it could be after a hard conversation with a colleague or a hard conversation with a friend, where you've had to be quite tough on them or you had to be quite direct. It could be you're noticing that you're feeling a little bit on edge or stressed, or for some people stress comes in different forms, so it's not just mental, it's physical. So it can manifest in like stomach issues and bowel issues. It can manifest in illnesses as well. Like there's so many illnesses that are linked to stress. I won't go through them now, but there's so many different signs. Like you might feel more tired, you might feel more irritable, you might feel a lot of pressure. Some people feel like their heart beating faster. And obviously a more extreme form of this are like panic attacks, for example, or anxiety attacks. So noticing how you feel when you feel drained and run down, and it's very personal to each person. It's not a one size fits all. Writing them down, having a journal, speaking to friends and family, and just noticing those, and then using whatever form of self-care that you can to help you navigate those times. And lastly, this question I really like, because from a cultural perspective, especially as immigrants into this country, you might be first generation, second generation, even third generation now, or even more. The concept of self-care can be quite alien. So it's like, what do you mean you're lying down? Like, what do you mean lying? Come and cut plantain, come and fry plantain, come and hoover the house. Like, it's kind of like being idle, if that's what your form of self-care is seen as you're just wasting time. So that's definitely what we do need to unlearn. It's obviously not good just to laze around all day. Everyone's got stuff to do. But like I said, putting aside time to really look after yourself, and that literally could just be an hour a day, 2 hours a week, half an hour a week, whatever fits into your lifestyle, to help you really come to terms with who you are, and also spend time on yourself. We tend to spend lots of time with other people and for other people, and as Christians we are supposed to service and work with other people, but at the same time you have to look after yourself as well. So it's a really good way, like I said, self-care is a good way of healing and developing yourself. And it's not just a one-off. You have to kind of, and Vanessa of Inside Out, she always talks about a battery, or a self-care battery, or a self-care pack. So like a battery, like your phone runs out of battery, you need to charge it every day or however often. I mean, these days I'm charging my phone twice a day. So you're also a person, and you have to recharge by going to sleep or having rest. So when you feel like your battery is wearing down, what do you do to recharge it? So if you see it like that, it doesn't seem like such a reach. It doesn't seem like, oh, I'm focusing on myself, I'm being selfish. You can only do what you can do, and the best way to be productive is to definitely look after yourself. Also, another thing that can help us to be resilient is understanding our identity as a person. And when I say identity, I don't just mean a Black identity. It's also about our identity as fully formed people. So you're not just a Black person, you're a Ghanaian person, you're a Seventh-day Adventist person. You might be a nurse, you might be a doctor, our identity is fully formed people. So you're not just a Black person, you're a Ghanaian person, you're a Seventh-day Adventist person. You might be a nurse, you might be so this identity allows us to feel a lot more grounded. It's a psychology term, or like a psychotherapy term, grounded. So it's a strong sense of identity can buffer against these internalized negative stereotypes. So what that means is, if we understand who we are as people and we're proud of ourselves and we're proud of where we've come from, if someone comes and says, oh, Black people are just like this and they don't work and they're lazy and all this stuff, you're like, well, that doesn't make sense, because that's not what I'm like, and that's not what any of the Black people I know are like. So those are the kinds of things we can do. And there's been many research studies done on this. I think when they've done questionnaires with Black adolescents, but also looked at racially the difference in self-esteem. Self-esteem is usually highest amongst the Black cohort in those studies. So racial identity is definitely something that can help us navigate what resilience is. Number 2 is redefine your perceptions of what it means to be Black and remind yourself of the value of your diversity within the space that you're in. So one of the things I've been doing recently is hosting podcast recordings with Black psychologists from all areas of psychology. And I had one yesterday with a forensic psychologist, and they're psychologists that work with offenders, as well as people who are involved or at risk of being involved in criminal activity. And they use psychological theories to help with probation services, etc. So one of the things that the forensic psychologist said that one of the ways that she navigates her workplace is to actually reach out to the Black service users that she works with and finds herself with when she's in like prison, schools, whatever. And it's definitely something and skills that the White people might not have. They might not know how to connect with Black people, basically, or people from other minority backgrounds. And that means the person that you're trying to help might feel more comfortable talking to you about things than another person. So that's definitely an asset. That's something you bring that the rest of the team won't bring. That's not to say that if you're a Black person, you have to always work with Black people. No, that's not what I'm saying. But there's something that gives you an extra, something extra that you might not find in the majority people. Connecting with a collective identity can protect you from the experience of being invisible. So this is where you're forming groups and support groups, and you're lucky because that's exactly what this church is all about. You're able to develop friendships, long life friendships, to help you connect to who you are and help you connect to your identity as well. And lastly, like I said earlier, we are not just one thing. You're not just Black. You might be a male, you might be a female, you might be a nurse, a doctor, or whatever profession you hold. You also might have children, to be a parent or an aunt or an uncle or a grandmother or grandfather. So there's so many things that make up who we are. We're not just one thing. We're not just homogenous, and we're not all the same. And everybody knows that. I'm sure. Another thing that can help us be resilient is what our values are. So values are things that you believe are important in the way you live and work. So what is important to you as an individual? At the bottom, we've got the Adinkra symbols there. And these are also a good way to connect to yourself and really find out who you are and what you really hold true. You can also use these symbols and connect them to the Bible, because a lot of them actually are really related. And there's lots of guides online. So if you don't know what any of these symbols are, ask your parents. If they don't know, then look online because there's lots of guides to help you. But they can really help you develop your sense of self. And then it can help you even like find jobs, because those, whatever your values are, you want to work in a place that values those things that you value. That's a good way of like getting rid of job applications. And even universities and schools have a look at what mission statements are and what they hold as important. And if it connects with what you want to do as well and what your values are, it can really help you to feel much more confident. Another way that we can think about values is thinking about some role models in your life and thinking about what it is about them that makes you admire them. Then you can be able to really identify what those things are that you find are important in your life. Another thing is community. So mentors are really important. And I know Ben's going to talk about this a little bit more in his presentation, but it's really about finding people who you trust to talk to that can help you navigate, if it's school, college, university, or the workplace, because those places are actually quite hard and extremely stressful. So it's only normal that you would feel daunted by some of this stuff. So it's definitely a good idea to get as much experience as you can. Sorry. Apologies. Experience as you can, or help with finding mentors. And like I said, Ben will be talking a bit more about that. Also, if you are in school or college, looking at tutors and individuals to help you out. And those people you trust, it could be your favorite teachers. They can actually be really good sources of information and support. And if that's not in school, then church. We're in a place where we've got so many professionals in this community, and they can all really help push you to where you need to be. Another thing is that Ben will talk about is networking. And trying to find people online. It's a little bit more difficult, but using different platforms to help you find the people that you're interested in and the areas that you're interested in and reaching out to them. There's like lots of platforms, like there's an organization called Black Young Professionals, or BYP, and they had a virtual conference last Friday that I managed to dip in and out of in between work meetings, and it was fantastic. Like they had so many speakers, like they had Dawn Butler, the MP for Brent North, I think, and they had David Olusoga, who is a historian, just on their virtual conference. But it was a really fantastic experience. So definitely, if that's something you want to do, you can contact me and I'll send you the details for that. Also, one thing you can do, if you find yourself in a place where people are being racist to you, or you feel like there is racism towards you, try and find non-Black people who are in positions of authority that are, the term is allies. So allies are supposed to be people who will back you, basically, if you're ever in a situation where you need support. Not every person is going to be an ally, but there might be one or two people that you really trust. So try and seek those out. And also, like I said earlier, you've got this community, the church family, to really help you navigate those spaces. So yeah, I'm coming to the end of this session, only because I'm focusing on resilience. So I'm really happy that everyone was able to listen, and I really hope that it's given you some tips and ideas of how to look after yourself in the time that we're in now. Everyone, if you're in education, you're actually at school, like physically at school. How is that? And using some of these tips of reaching out to people, trying to find some people you trust to work with, is a really important thing. So yeah, if anyone wants to reach out to me afterwards for some of the links or anything like that, just let me know and I'll pass it back on to Fido.
Thank you so much, Grace. That was very informative, and I think we all can take a cue from it. I hope that everybody got something out of it. If you do need more information, Grace is in London Ghana Church. She can also be reached either but through myself or those of you who know her. You can contact her directly. If not, and you still want to get in touch with her, please get in touch with the church through our address or our email or through Facebook at London Ghana SDA Church, and then we can get you in contact with Grace. So thank you very much. We'll have a music break, and then after that, we'll go straight back into the session with Ben.
I asked for a robe.
He gave me no robe to wear.
I asked for a crown.
He gave me a cross to bear. He knows what I need. Yes, indeed. He knows what I need. He knows what I need.
I asked for myself.
He showed me a friend indeed.
Oh, I must prepare.
He gave me his words to read. He knows what I need. Yes, indeed. He knows what I need. He knows what I need.
Oh, some happy day.
I hear the trumpet sound.
I'm going away.
Oh, that will be heaven bound. He knows what I need. Yes, indeed. He knows what I need. He knows what I need.
You wiped all my tears.
You wipe my tears away.
To hear his well done.
Oh, that will be heaven to me. He knows what I need. Yes, indeed. He knows what I need. He knows what I need.
All the way from heaven's throne to a manger came my Lord. Left to the cross, he came to suffer everything.
He asked for a car.
Whatever in that car,
He never complained.
he murmured not a word. He knows what I need. Yes, indeed. He knows what I need. He knows what I need.
All the way from heaven's throne to a manger came my Lord. Left to the cross, he came to suffer every
He
day.
asked for a car.
Whatever had been that cap,
He never complained.
he murmured not a word. He knows what I need. Yes, indeed.
Yes.
He knows what I need. He knows what I need.
This is the manifest. We are here again to sing, give you. All right. This one is a key medley. It's a compilation of choral songs that we're putting together, entitled "It's Nyame Ba Tampa." It's really a praise song to God. How great God is. Sit down and
Nyame batampa yona muma. Oh, see the rain, Susuhe, Kaini Janayo,
Fasitamano, Neja Uye,
Eja,
Anitiwaya,
Jetuju,
Nekase, Siteni, Nekase, Wayemu,
Oyado, Oyado, Yatampa, Yodonamo, I see the rain, Oyado. Mebo wa bodinda ibinyamira yo wani ubambonti mebo wa bodinda akwa usem akwa ibinyamira yo abeda wasada tuntumo aside amenda maybe yefu maye eye wukuto Sebibi papa bi waside eye wudyo enye mi na maye eye to na waye Sebibi papa bi waya eye wudyo mara wudyo nyami ye kesi man mumose mi ye oh hallelujah ye ferusi ranenim ye feronku tu sorry no ye food ye kwashi butanya kopon sheria po ahin fo musasita Kafuo ye sutua anya kopon sheria po Hallelujah, upon Jadian Bondi. Mumayeka, Mumayeka, Ejonya mi yodo. Mumayeka, Ejonya mi yodo. Mumayeka, Ejonya mi yodo. Ejonya mi mumayeka
This is the manifest again.
Thank you once again. I just wanted to remind everyone that if you're on YouTube and you have a question for either Grace or Ben in his next presentation, kindly type it in the chat below. If you're also on Facebook, do likewise, and our technical team will call all the questions and inform the facilitators who would do well to answer those if it's within the time that we're here. If not, we would only answer those questions online to your satisfaction. If you still want to get in touch, do so. So without wasting much time, I'd like to invite Ben to go on his presentation. Thank you, Ben.
Hello? Hello, can everyone hear me? Can you hear me, Fido? Yeah, fantastic. Hi, everyone. Happy Saturday. Happy Sabbath. It's been a while since I've done any kind of presentation at church. And to be honest, I think this is the only presentation on kind of to more than 2 or 3 people over Zoom. So I'm going to attempt to actually display my screen and do all the Zoom stuff. But if there's technical difficulties, please let me know. So let's see if I can at least share my screen, and then we will go from there. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Let me
flowers.
present. Great. Basically, it's been an insane few years actually. I got a phone call from Fido a couple of weeks ago after I actually went round to his house, and he was like, I haven't seen you in a long time. What have you been up to, etc., etc. Kind of went through my experiences. And usually when someone says, what are you up to? You spend more than 8 hours of the day in work. So work and career were dominated. And he said to me after I went through, you really should tell more people about it. And I said, yeah, okay, why not? So basically what I really want to go through is the career journey. There's been a lot of, I think growing up, the people things about what your career should look like, how you actually move into different careers. A lot of people claim that it's very step by step. You go to school, you do some exams, you go to uni, exams, you apply for some jobs, you get a job, promotion, go to a different job, get a promotion, and then and your career is like, let's say, like 40 years. And a lot of times that what happens when you go to uni or when you don't exams or into a job but you don't actually like it, like what happens? And no, people don't really, as far as I was concerned, people didn't really, it wasn't hard. And so what I would do was firstly kind of explain the journey that I'm on, because I haven't reached any kind of destination in my view, but then also highlight some of the methods I used in order to have some of the opportunities that have been put in front of me. And a lot of us have been kind of understanding that people are way more open than they are. And usually the only thing stopping you from being in a room is that you putting yourself in that environment, in those rooms. Much further ado, move forward. So basically I got to a couple of years ago, didn't really know what I wanted to do. And essentially I spent about 12 to 18 months trying out as much things as possible to figure out what I wanted to do. And then actually, so between 2018 and around about June 2019 / the end of 2019, I had literally just put myself there and as many things as possible. So I quit my job for years. I had a bit of money, and I basically said I could use this. A bit reckless. I said I could use this to actually or I can use it to fund myself to actually figure out what to do. And I did the latter, and basically use that money to fund. I didn't really know how it would turn out. I didn't have a day-by-day plan. I had just a high-level thing how I was going to go about it. But what I ended up with is me having way more opportunity than I really ever thought I would, and having a much clearer direction as to where I'll efforts in the future. I think someone said to me when I first started, they said, look, like your career is long, most of your life actually. So because a marathon and not a sprint, who cares if you're spending a couple of years just about what you need to do. So to get anything from this present is that, missing, depending on your circumstance, obviously, being on a defined path for a few years it's not the end of the world. So why is it that I did all of that? Like I said, after school, uni, like getting jobs, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. Like I was in a job, like in line for promotion, wasn't satisfied. So how did I actually start doing it? Before to it, it really does depend on your circumstances. If you have dependent, if you're married, if you've got kids, it changes priorities, it changes something you can do. But there are, indeed, I think it's easier than ever to explore routes. Secondly, I'm no expert. I don't have questions in a career advice. I literally just have experiences. I say just have experiences. I have experiences, and yeah. And as such, the advice that I give, take it how you want to take it. As adults, you know, ask to measure what we hear and it's useful and leave the rest. And finally, this is not a get rich quick scheme. I'm not going to teach you how to start a business from your home. I'm not going to show you, you know, tell you to recruit X amount of people to do Y things. Or it's literally, these are methods that you can use it and get some certain results. So as I said, my goal is to encourage you to try new things, to explore, but most importantly, experiment and fail. The quicker you fail, the quicker you find out what you want to do. And when I fail, it means not like, it's like what you intended to do, it didn't work, or you tried something and you didn't actually like it. That's a good thing. The more you get used to picking yourself up. So who am I? That's a very good question. I think Fido stumbled on it when he tried to introduce. I think the point is, it depends what side you see, like how you're with me. I guess from a career perspective, some may say that like I'm a, but what really is I'm a product designer. Some may say like I do business development, business design, interests, so like I like art, design, etc. Like problem solving. But from an academic perspective, I did study electronic engineering at uni, but I've worked most of my, the first kind of 5 years of my career in automotive. But my main goal is basically to make things, new experiences with people that are than me, more intelligently, just so that I can learn. And so essentially, that's kind of, so as I said, traditional kind of career journey you have in your head when you're at, like I said, this can span like 40 years, 40, 50 years. And to be honest, this is a way that you can move forward. However, you know, I think more and more as the internet takes hold, especially COVID times, I think this form of career journey is very quickly going out, depending on what you do. This is like journey, and this is kind of where I am at the moment. I basically, obviously went to they taught me some stuff there at Mental, but to be honest, going through the motions was just on train, and the expectation, not really placed on me by anyone, but expectation that yeah, you know, just go to uni in it. So I went to school, got some grades, went to uni, you know. I ended up doing engine at uni, literally because like one of us did it, and I kind of had some interest in, you know, computers and stuff. But I also really like the social, like history and whatnot. But to be quite honest, I didn't know where the money was going to come from. So I wrote 2 statements, and I really struggled to write the one for like history and stuff, didn't hand it in. Basically, I ended up doing engineering at UCL in London, and then in my 3rd year I went to America in Atlanta. The main reason like this is what I learned is that if you have enough time and you have the right people in a team, you can really do anything. Like you can do anything. It doesn't mean you should do everything, but you can, if you think you can do it. You don't really need a background, really need any understanding. And the main reason I came out is during weeks, you know, they didn't actually allow us to go on reading. So what they did was they let everyone else go home. So in English, like all that kind of stuff at home during reading week. And they made all the electronic students come in. And there was about 100 of us. They'll put us in random teams. Like, here's a challenge for you. Give us a challenge. They'd be like, this week you need to have solved this thing. Like, for example, the things they gave us was, here you've got a mobile phone. It has been found on a rail track. Someone got hit by a train and we're trying to locate where they here's like some file their phone, figure out where they came from. And the file was like 3 columns of numbers gave us, and they were like, go. Us looked at each other really confused, like how the hell and figure out who person lived just with this text with like some numbers on it, no labeling, nothing. But the week someone pinpointed the guy's house to like literally, I think it was 5 meters. And so they made us do that kind of stuff. Like there are teams with people that we didn't even like for these chats with no information, no learning. And every single time we did it. So what they taught us there was literally like, don't be afraid of a new. And I really took that. When I went to Georgia Tech, I picked courses that, you know, I had no background, no knowledge. And towards the end of it, I had made some friends, like achieved so much. And that kind of set me up for the next phase, which was this kind of job phase. So this is like I pattern here. I didn't run to go work at a car company. I care that much about cars. Obviously YouTube, and it's probably going to be recorded. So if there's anyone at Jaguar that this is new to, oh well, I know now. But yeah, I don't really much about cars. But what I do care about is just solving. But the reason why I worked there was because on Careers Day, there was a careers fair I used to, and to be perfectly honest, it was filled with white people and a black girl on a stand, and I was interested. So I went to the stand with a black girl thinking, if people work here, then obviously I'm going to get involved. So the thing, had a little conversation, went home and just applied. And that's literally it. Like, I didn't really think of it. I didn't look at where it was based, really, you know, didn't really look at it, didn't even know what a job was. I just applied and, you know, kept on going through the stages and got it. But I got there, and to be honest, I didn't know what to expect. I walked in expecting people with like tools in their hand, engineering work, but not really what it was. People were on spreadsheets. They were on spreadsheets with, you know, those headsets. I do have mine. These headsets. These headsets were everywhere, on phones, like on conference calls, pretty much all. And I was really confused. And then there wasn't any training. Well, there was, but no relevant to like the day to day. And I was thinking, what is going on here? Like, and then, you know, they would push you into meetings saying, you're leaving, and you just have to go and do it. And, you know, the beginning was difficult, but you just get that. If you ask, so Ben Menu, I don't know if you know, like he works there, and his experiences were quite, fortunately when he came, I'd been through it. So I gave him the heads up. But ultimately it was the kind of moment where you stuff yourself, you build what you want to build from it. And it was very similar to my uni experience. I learned that given enough time and team, even if you don't know, you can very quickly get to know if you have initiative. So like I said before, if you forget everything from nation, remember that it's never too late to kind of change and learn, and don't be afraid to fail. But also what I'm at, if you forget everything, with the right team, right people, even if you can a lot. And so to a point, like the training scheme was about 18, a whole bunch of experiences. Again, same thing was happening. Everyone I went to would go in, don't know anything. They'll put your situation. You just have to get on with it and figure out how, and then deliver. And so, point where like I was in the same for about a year and a half. I kind of, you know, I was good at, but when you're good at something, they don't like moving. So I was kind of like, I want to try things and whatnot, and they were in their heels. To myself, to be honest, I didn't even want to do this. I didn't plan to. And I remember it was the day of my appraisal, and they were literally about to get motion. And in that same meeting, in my notice, and I said to them, "Yeah, I really want to like do new things, etc., etc." I remember what the manager said to me at the time. He said, "Obviously, you'll always be here, but how do you know that where you're going to be worse won't be worse than here?" Obviously, what I then what I said, sure that this place could improve. However, I want to figure out what I want to do. And remember that conversation, I'll come back to it. I left there June 2018 and I started the exploration journey. Mainly learned on that exploration journey was there's a lot of opportunities out there. There's a lot of, if you have the willingness to kind of, how do I get rid of this bottom here? If you've got the willingness to kind of learn and you've got the willingness to try new things, you literally can do a whole lot of stuff. So this is kind of where I'm at. I'm finished the exploration kind of. I now have way more direction, and I'll get into more of that next slide. So what did that exploration look like? So for me, it was firstly, what's important to me? Like, what are my priorities? And for me at the time, I realized that I was going to, and it was great working there, to be honest. It was great to see like you're actually doing something with a physical product at the end. But I didn't like, that was my calling. I didn't really feel like I was adding as much to the world. I didn't, and it depends on who you are, like some like a kind of specific environment. I wanted to be like more in the studio kind of environment, et cetera, et cetera. And I also realized that money wasn't a key driver for me. Nor was like being a manager. I didn't really care too much for that. And so I looked at what was important, and then I thought to myself, well, what do I want to do based on what's important? The answer was, I don't have a clue. And so that whole thing of how do I then get into it, that wasn't even a question. The point was, what do I actually want to do now? And so I would say I wrote it out like a line, but ultimately it's a circle. It's an iterative process where you ask this question continuously. And maybe at the beginning, it's like, well, what kind of career do I want? What industry do I want to be in? And then you kind of do some experimentation and you find the industry. But then maybe it becomes well, what kind of role do I want to have in that industry? And then you the same loop again. So for me, it was, I want to be around like fun, young people. I want to be in teams that are very collaborative. And yeah, money is a thing, but at that point for me, it was like money. So all I needed to do was cover my costs, which after doing some quick maths wasn't really that much. And so it came. Then like, what do I want to do? I kind of had some ideas around, I like design because I'd worked with designers in the previous role. I wanted to be a bit more technical, or at least I did, because I was more managerial or like project management. And I wanted to be in product development, but that was faster. Like a car development cycle is 4 years. So 4-year period, I'd started midway of one and then ended at the beginning of another. I wanted to be in something that was much faster to develop. And then how did I get into it? You'll see later, but when I then started to do my exploration, LinkedIn was a big thing. My current network was huge, but then also starting projects just on my own with what I had in front of me, to kind of show people that I'm not in this background, but I can do this. So what did my exploration actually look like? And forgive me for, how unreadable this slide is, but left-hand side is just all the things that I did in that 12-month period. And the right is kind of what that became. So I started off again, engineering, doing project management stuff. And then for the first couple months, I didn't really do that much. I was just in London, meeting up with my friends that I hadn't seen because for role. I had to move to the Midlands. So I was in London just catching up with friends and whatnot. And then I'd slid some into doing backing vocals and wedding singing and stuff like that. Friends, connections and all this kind of stuff. And that was the first kind of bit of experience that I had. Okay, I can sing, been singing in church, whatnot. What is it like actually doing this music thing? Is this appeals to me? So I did that. That was interesting. And ultimately I decided that it wasn't really for me. Again, if you have any questions, any of my experiences, then feel free to ask me, and I'll go into detail. I then did some software development at one of the suppliers that I manage, and this is a key thing. Keep good relationships in your workplace, whether it's with your suppliers or your colleagues, because you just as a good human, it's good to have good relations with people. But secondly, Cousin says this a lot, is you never know where you might find yourself, and you never know where they might find themselves as well. I think from a biblical perspective, the whole Joseph in the prison aspect comes in. A former manager basically went to another company, one of the suppliers, and he was basically like, "Oh, look, I like," and I said, "Well, I kind of want to get some experience in software development. Come and join my team." So I literally joined their team for 12 weeks and did software development, hardcore software development. I'd never done it really. Well, I'd done it in school, but not in a commercial thing. And it was a great experience. Then I left there, went to Ghana for a month. Whilst I was in Ghana, a friend of mine hit me up and was like, you said that you're an engineer. Come and I'm meeting a design client, can you build a website? And my answer was no, I've never done that before. And he was like, "Oh, please, I'm having a meeting, just come to the meeting." So I went to the meeting. That experience resulted in just starting up a branding agency and a web development agency. I didn't know branding was, didn't know what marketing was, but there was a guy in front of us that said that he wanted it done, and he liked the way they speaking. So I went on Google, typed in how to do branding, how to do marketing, and then just kind of figured it out. And that led to another client with a cashew nut import-export company. And both of these experiences, again, built up connections, built up just random experiences in random different industries. And it was just another string to the bow. Again, this was during the 12-month period. One of the things, if you go to the previous slide, I wanted to do some kind of design work in a design studio. And so again, I looked around for where to do it. Friend of a friend said he knew someone with an escape room, and who's looking for people to help out. So I spoke to him. He said, "What have you done in the past?" I told him that I wasn't really in the end. Look, come on board and let's see what can happen. So I came on board and I designed some escape rooms. Essentially, an escape room, for those who don't know, it's a place that you go to. You have an hour to get out, and there's locks and stuff. I designed an escape room over a 3-month period, and that was fun. But again, after Ghana, I was pretty much broke, had no money. But I had told myself, look, I'm not going back into the corporate until I've had enough experiences to know what I wanted to do. Again, it depends on what your situation is. It might not be for everyone, but ultimately, in this period, this wasn't one after the other, all at the same time. And I don't necessarily advise that because it can be a lot of stress. But for me, it was quite fun. I did that escape room thing. Again, that led to more discussions with other people. They were like, there's this startup and they're looking for people to do X thing and Y thing. And based on some experience that I had up here, I was by no means an expert, but just the willingness to try something new. They liked. So I went there, again, know what the hell I was doing at all. But then learned, went on Google, researched certain things, spoke to people, and kind of did it and delivered it. So essentially, it's for 8 or 9 different companies, random, different. But around June time of 2019, I was burning out after doing all this stuff at the same time. But what I had realized was that, okay, I really liked the escape room stuff. I really liked the things that I was doing with advertising and working with certain companies like Condé Nast, etc. And I really like startups as opposed to corporations. So that was my learning, that I still didn't exactly know what I wanted to do, but this was the starting point. Now I'm going to go to the next slide and say, this exploration journey is not linear, it's cyclical. So for me, it was many different roles in in different industries, kind of with this type of thing. And so that's with me just going on to a whole bunch of things. And then in the second loop, I was like, okay, now I know a bit more of what I want to do. How do I dig deeper and get more? So I tried less experiences, which you'll see later. But I went a bit deeper then. And basically what that's ended up with is that I want to work in media and technology, but also I either want to start up or work in one. And what that means is looking at what is happening in new technologies. So what's happening in virtual reality, what's happening in augmented reality, like stuff like, the stickers on Snapchat and Instagram, that kind of stuff. What is the future of film, etc. Again, if you want to know exactly why I came to those conclusions, you can speak to me after or whatnot. But that was a conclusion that I came to. I've worked out a bit more what I was good at, where I added the most value, but then also I experience of like a whole different industries in a really short amount of time. And this experience alone, when I've been in interviews since, like, this is what I've done, like everyone kind of looks quite surprised. At the time, I didn't realize what it would look like, but ultimately, it hasn't been, even though I faced kind of financially, it's something that in the long term will and already is paying off. So again, coming to it, like, where do you begin? It started for me as a question of what's important. This is different for everyone. So these are some questions that you can ask yourself if you don't really know what you want to do, and you want to start to find out. So firstly, like, why are you working? Like, what do you want to get out of a job? Do you live to work or do you work to live? Do you even care whether you enjoy what you're doing or not? Because there's some people that don't care. Like, I come in, I get my chair, leave. If I'm coming to have fun, I'll have fun at home or with my friend. I don't need to have fun at work. If that's who you are, then the journey will look very different to you. In that case, it might be just maximizing as much money as possible. And then your search begins with what jobs give me the most money, or, et cetera, et cetera. But for me, it was, I want to have an impact. I want to be in a team that works in a certain way, like, et cetera, et cetera. Do you even think it's important to have an impact? Do you know what kind of team, like, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes if you can't answer in a positive, you might be able to answer in a negative. So what didn't you like in some of the places? And if you've never had a career, it might be in the school environment when you've been working in teams or whatever. What issues have you had? What don't you like? And that will kind of solidify what's important to you. So when you go into the next one, you'll have some direction. If you don't know what's important to you, then again, working from the negatives is probably the easiest way. What gets you angry? What gets you annoyed? Kind of stuff. And then try and figure out, if this gets me angry, would the opposite, like, help me? And is there an environment that looks like that? What do I want to do? Again, this question of what do I actually want to do, it had for me from like 2016. What do I enjoy? Like, what things do I what kind of films, do you know what I mean? Those kind of fundamental questions about yourself, you really know. Surprisingly, when I asked myself, I didn't really know. But answering some of those questions of what do I enjoy, what don't I enjoy, is the beginning of finding out what you then want to do as a career moving forward. Secondly, it was, who do I admire? To be this question that actually was the trigger point for me to leaving where I was. Because I looked around, I looked at all of the management, all of the leadership mates, and I didn't want to be like any of them. and this is nothing on them. Like, great people I worked with, great individuals. I just didn't want to be like them. Their path and my path, I just didn't see myself there. So for me, that was a clear indication of I need to get out. But the question then was, who do I actually admire? Like, who in work, in business, in film, in TV do I actually look? And I didn't really know. So I had to really delve deep and look at that. And what I would make a list, find out about those people, biographies, find out where they're working, find out what their journey was, and maybe model yourself on their journey. Everyone's different, but there's a lot that we can take. And remember that, because I'm going to come back to that later. And then finally, what skills and talents do you have that you could potentially like carry forward? What have you enjoyed in the past, etc. And how can I start with what I have? And then finally, how do I get into it? So once you've kind of defined what you want to do and the direction I go in, it's that how do I get into it question. And for me, it was kind of this kind of 3-step. Who do you know, like, that's in those, or who can you know that's in those fields? And here what I'm highlighting is friends and relationships with kind of people good. But just because someone works in a place doesn't actually mean they can get you in there. And it might not be easy for them to get you in there. And so ultimately, are the people that you're talking to actual decision makers? And if they're not, how do you get to know the decision makers? So what you can do is help the people that you know to get you to the decision maker, or you can just contact decision makers directly. And so looking at your net decision makers and people that know you, but then also who's in a field of people that you don't know in industries that you want to be in. List of those people, maybe like you want to get into film, like who is a top film in the UK, etc. And I'll delve into this with an example as well. And there's some prep work, obviously researching about them, doing projects in those fields in your own time, like doing work / a mini project for maybe a company that you want to get into without them knowing, and then sending it to them as a thing saying, I really want to talk to you. I've done this thing. I just want to see what you. And then finally, like building relationship with people, maybe not immediately messaging them and saying, like, this is what I want to do. Do you got any jobs? You have any jobs for me? Maybe, and it's not even a maybe. I'll get into it later. I think I've got a slide on this. Yeah. I'll get into this later with how you then, or how I've kind of tried to build relationships in that area. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a slide, and then I'm going to go to the end and I'll run back and give you an example of one area that I've kind of been able to get into. So looking at how you get what I had done, obviously in a lot of those experiences that I had, the beginning was looking at friends and speaking to them and them saying, like, I've seen that you've done that's similar. How about like doing this thing or doing that thing? But what I want to focus on is actually people that you don't know. So what I did was I figured out I wanted to get into the kind of more media / technology space. And so I looked at what my journey was, and I tried to find people that had a similar journey to me. So I looked for people that were maybe of minority backgrounds. I looked for people that were actually in the top kind of agencies. I looked for people that were in technology, but then also had like some business experience, but then also, you know, they were creative in some kind of way. And I made a list of those people and I researched them. I found out, you know, what they had been involved in. I found out like what uni they went to, like what their career path was, as much as possible. And then I literally started to write mails, write emails, like template mails and whatnot, with some of that information that was kind of personalized to them. And I shipped it out onto LinkedIn, on Instagram, on wherever. And I would ask, I wouldn't be asking for jobs. I would literally I would say, look, I know your industry. I'm coming from cars. What tips do you have for someone like me who's getting into the industry? Like, what was your journey in you getting in? And, you know, do you recommend actually getting in the industry at this time? I think during COVID is actually a big opportunity, because a lot of these people are at home, number one. Number two, like, you've got a topic to start with. During COVID, like, is this even a good time to get in? And usually, if your questions are deep enough, I would say I would end with, do you have time to jump on a call? Bear in mind, I don't know these people from Adam. Like, I would just message them and see. And basically, one of the reasons why I did this was from one of the experiences that I had already had at this point as a growth manager at this startup. Basically, it was pretty much sales, but like, you needed to have an understanding of, you know, the technology and business direction and strategy and whatnot. So what I had learned is sales is a numbers. So if you reach out to enough people and hammer them hard enough, someone will respond eventually. And it might be 10%, it might be 1%. But if I would only need 5 people, if I need to only speak to 5 guys, and I say that, you know, my rate is 10%, then I have to send 50 emails out. And it's as simple as that. Like, eventually someone will respond and you will have a call with someone. My rate was about 60% or 60 or 70%. So 7 in every 10 people that I reached out to, I had a call with. And so, like I said, if you don't be disheartened, because it's a numbers game. So what I'm going to do is actually go back into a specific example and let you know like where I am with it. So I basically told you that I wanted to, let me reshare my screen actually. Let me shut the share and actually share this full window. Hopefully you can see this full window. So ignore the title of this presentation. It's, you know, sometimes that's what I do. But basically, as you had seen, after experiences, I wanted to be involved in a company that was kind of giving real experiences through media and tech, because I enjoyed the escape room. I liked kind of design. I like media and technology, but I also like this. So what I looked at, where do media, technology, and business kind of converge? And that was in virtual reality and augmented. Obviously, may or may not know what these things are, but to be honest, it doesn't really make this point. So what I started to for was, who are like the top virtual reality companies, virtual reality professionals, and are there any conferences and what? So I literally went through this list. I even looked at agencies, immersive reality agencies. So these are kind of consultancies that build things for. And one of the websites that I found was this company called Nexus. This is an actual, this place is an actual virtual reality company, and they make amazing stuff. Like, they do animation, they do kind of experiences from people, like blah blah blah. And I was like, this is great. Like, these people are great, involved. So on LinkedIn, I looked at, I found out who their director was. Let's see, contact. I think it was in team at talent. I looked at their team, and actually on this page, their director wasn't on here. So I had to actually search for who the director was and who their creative director was. And I actually found the guy on LinkedIn. I'm going to give you the name of the guy, just for, you know, confidentiality, but you could probably find out. And what I did was I sent a mail to him. This was the mail that I sent over LinkedIn. I basically said, like, this is who I am. This is what I want to do. I'm impressed by your work, because I looked at the work that he had done. And I said, like, I'm not in here. How do I get in? Are there any advice that you can give? And I just was like, super. I wasn't trying to. I was something that I wasn't. Something bigger. I was just honest. This guy responded, and he told me about like his experience, and like he grew up in Tottenham and all stuff. And that led to a call. And that call then led to he lived with the actual CEO of the. I had a call with. They were really interested in kind of some of the projects that I had started. And then they basically said, touch, let us know like what's going on. Fast forward a few months later, the projects that I was working on had properly started. And now they want to support in what we're doing. And so that's how, like, you can literally go from like completely separate industry that has nothing to do with where you want to be in, and kind of arrive there just through some messages and through building relationships. And like I said, like, I'm not for a job. I'm not asked, because I don't even know if I want that personally. But like, from a lot of these discussions in jobs and looking views and trying to get your foot in the door, mostly about trust and building relationships, gaining that trust through relationships. That's why certain backgrounds are easier to do than others, because like they've developed trust, where, you know, you can know they can go to a place and then like, because they've tried that, they deliver, they bring you in. So the question, how do you generate that relation, that trust with people that you don't know in industries that you have no experience in? And typically message B and messaging them and saying, look, I can get in here, especially at a time where people are so accessible. It's something that can be realistic, is doable. So yeah. So coming back to the slides, I think I've got one more to show. It's like the conclusion. Firstly, what I want to ensure is very clear. One, it's never too late to change direction. You might think that you're baked into a career that, gonna make you money, that, people, blah, blah, blah. But it depends on your circumstance, but there's more to life than, at least in the short term, than money. Like, it's going to be long. It's going to be 40 years plus. In my view, it was better for me what I wanted to do early, could enjoy my career. But if you are someone that doesn't really need to enjoy their career, then again, you can same, but have a different goal at the beginning. Secondly, don't be afraid to reach out. There's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people that have experience that are near the end of their careers or give back or want to actually mentor people. Just reach out to them. Be honest about where and why you want to get to where you want to, and use that to build a rapport. Mentors, and you never know where that mentorship will take you. Second, start mini projects in the go into. One of my friends, again, he was in uni course as me. I remember come in late with me, white guy, the guy, he would come in shorts in the winter, didn't wear that much. But again, he in engineering, and every day he was on his laptop selling guitars, forums, and I'd see what he was doing. Literally spend the whole lecture just his guitars, buying and selling guitars. Basically, he now is the global team lead for this production company. So it's an equipment company. I don't know if those of you that are, they do MIDI controllers and sim and software to make music. Essentially, he walked into me. He said, I've got an engineering, and they were like, okay, cool, this is in role. And then he was like, I have a band and I've marketed, and then also I buy and sell guitars and the thing. So through his process of a project that he was during a lecture in uni, and they were like, okay, we like your initiative, come on. 5 years later, the marketing lead company across brands. So many projects is the way during those sessions you're having with these people. Actually, you do care about this thing and you have some potential. And then find people that want your service. These mini projects, they don't be some stuff that you do just for fun or for free. They might actually want the projects that you're doing that you use for. And so ultimately, I fell into an environment where my friend was going to client and they wanted a website. I'd done it, but I saw that as a mini project. And what's the worst that can happen? What we do, and the person's angry, oh well. Cool. It so happened did deliver, and you're able to charge for that service. That's the main conclusion. Too late to change. Reach out to build relationships. Start mini and find people that want your service. And last but not least, don't be afraid. So I hope you got something out of that. Great. Available at some point for talk more on a one basis. At this point, I don't want to run it whether you want to have an A but that's pretty much it.
So Ben, just a quick one. Some of us are, well, I wouldn't say the boat, but we're quite old, and we've got families and responsibilities. It's to take that. Is there any advice? Is there anything I could still do if there's any of us in that kind of position?
Yeah. So what I'm going to frame that again in the experiences that I'm in. Like I said, I had saved up some money in order to journey, right? But at the end of that period, I had got those experiences, but broke. Everything cost money, and I was focusing on maximize my earning potential in that time. And when in 2020, I had to generate income. Now I knew what I wanted to do, because I wanted to do. I needed to fund my actually go and do it, and so went back into the industry I was in to generate revenue. So some even though I knew care about it that much. And so that's where a lot of people's situations, you know, you need to generate money, but people to look after, you have a mortgage or whatever, but you can't actually leave yet. You don't like it, you want to get out. So again, firstly, like personal projects, and secondly, still reaching out and doing more steps that you can do in order to progress. So what I would give is, I started back into that automotive industry in January of 2020. I knew I wanted to be in the media kind of content creation. So what I did was, okay, like what's the smallest thing I can do? And I started literally with my friends, in conversations with my friends, basically. And when they would see interest in, I learned quickly like how to make like these animes, and I just started putting them on my Instagram. 30 seconds long. It was literally just for fun, right? But it's to just get experience in that kind of area, right? How do you edit? How do you direct, engage people and stuff like that? And actually started then to reach out to people in that field. And this is all the I was actually, they looked at that and they were like, like your full-time job in the complete industry and you're doing this. Oh, maybe like when opportunities come up, hit you up and let you know. And in that way, you move to transition to paid fees, even though you have like the experience. But it's one of those things, doing small projects in the time with the resources that you don't know where that's going to lead. So that's what I would say in answer to that. Yeah, you may feel that you've missed, you may feel that you've got, is really never. The question is, what's the step that you can do today? And that you've seen, basically.
Thank you so much. I don't know you listening to me, but I have been blessed. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ben. I do appreciate that you've spent with us. Sadly, we've come to the end of our session. I know you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And if you want more of this, please tune into our live stream at London, Ghana SDA Church. You can find us on Facebook and also on YouTube. You can actually go onto our church website at www.londonghana.sda.com and our service from there. We'd like to thank God for bringing us thus. Our day has been blessed all the way from the morning with Michael Danko to this time. We are ending off. I just like to say a few things. Again, thank you to Grace and to Busu, and also to Elder and Mrs. Busu as well, for raising such fine young people who are listening to our church. We also like to thank our team, Kojo Riafe, he's behind the scenes helping us today, and all the other technical members from earlier. And as we sign off, I just want us to have a quick word of prayer. So kindly close your eyes and let's have a quick word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we are most grateful that you brought us to a time like this. Even in the confusion and the state of panic around us, you still give us an opportunity to learn from you. We pray that everything that has been said here, you will let it sink in, help us to process it, and to use information that we need to use to better lives and to get closer to you. As we leave this platform, commit our week into your hands. Be with us. In the name of Jesus, we have prayed. Amen. So like I said, we are ending. Thank you all for watching us. If you need more answers or if you have any more questions, please post them on our Facebook or our YouTube page and we will answer them. Thank you very much.
Come and gone since I first heard it told how Jesus would come again someday. If back then it seemed so real, then I just can't help but feel how much closer his coming is today. Signs of the times are distant sky. Lift up your hands, read and draw at night. Wars and strife on every hand, and violence fill our land. Still some people doubt and evil again, but the word of God is true. He redeemed His chosen few. Don't lose hope. Soon as Jesus will return, Signs of the times are everywhere. There's a brand new feeling in the air. Keep your eyes upon the eastern sky. Lift up your heads. Lift up your heads. Lift up your heads. Redemption draws